What's going on, everybody? What's happening? What is going down? It is Wednesday, August the 21st, 2024, 1:37 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. My name's Dave Mcrae, coming to you live from the Voice Man Studios in Toronto, Canada, and this is episode 277 of Mcrae Live. Do it again! Crystal Lake has a new showrunner, the Friday the 13th TV series from A24. Brian Fuller is out. Brad Kane is in. What does it mean? Do you care? Are you excited for the Crystal Lake TV series? You're probably thinking, where's the Halloween news? One more time! This is the last time. If I keep doing this, it's Are you excited? Friday the 13th TV series Crystal Lake from A24. It's a prequel. Hey, what's going on, everybody? Episode 277 of Mcrae Live. So this news dropped a couple of days ago, but I've been very busy the last couple of days, and so I'm just getting to it now. But let's go over to the other screen, and I believe this was first reported in Variety. I'm going to be reading it from Bloody Disgusting, but let's go over to the other screen and just see how we're doing. Okay, so Bloody Disgusting, again, comes from Friday. A24's Crystal Lake lands new showrunner for Friday the 13th prequel TV series. I don't have my glasses. Damn it. Okay, we'll see if we can get through this. Plans for A24 and Peacock's planned Friday the 13th television series Crystal Lake derailed earlier this year, with showrunner Brian Fuller, Hannibal, Brian Fuller's departure, I should say, leaving the project in limbo. Deadline reports that the project is back on track, enlisting Brad Caleb Kane. Ooh, that's a good name. Brad Caleb Kane. Brad Caleb Kane. I like that. Who is the, I guess the showrunner for It, Welcome to Derry, as far as I know. He's a part of it anyway. As the new showrunner, Kane will serve as the series creator, showrunner, writer, and executive producer. All right. Okay. To refresh your memory, Peacock had given the project a straight-to-series order in 2022, with Crystal Lake being described as a expanded prequel to the original Friday the 13th franchise, featuring both Jason Voorhees and his mama, Pamela. Additionally, Vincenzo Natelli, is that how you say that? Kimberly Pierce, were set to direct episodes, with the budget ballooning to around 10 million shekels per episode, with 8 episodes in total planned for the first season. That's $80 million. That's a lot of shekels. It would have cost A24 roughly $85 million to bring the series to life. And of course, that probably doesn't include marketing at all. With additional seasons being planned by the studio, except the direction to change completely now. Except the direction is to change now, of course, yes, completely, with the new showrunner in place. Kane has most recently served as co-showrunner and executive producer of It, Welcome to Derry, an anticipated It prequel series starring Bill Skarsgård as Pennywise. In addition to Kane, executive producers on the series include A24's Victor Miller, of course, who wrote the screenplay for the franchise's original 1980 film. Miller's copyright attorney, Mark Toberoff, is that how you say that? Again, I don't have my glasses on here. Toberoff, I think that's right. I'm reading from actually the OBS. I should be reading from the actual website. But anyway, nonetheless, Robert M. Barzaman, and Robert P. I guess you got some brothers in there. The project will mark A24's first major IP-driven project amid a recent effort to expand in a more commercial direction. Quote, "From the moment I watched Jason Voorhees squeeze a guy's eyeball out of his socket in glorious 3D at the tender age of 8 years old, I knew my creative path was someday destined to converge with the man behind the mask," said Kane in a statement. "Nothing defined my childhood more than growing up in the golden age of the slasher flick, and nothing's defined the genre more than Friday the 13th. You know, that is kind of true. As much as we are Halloween fans here, that is kind of true. Because again, Michael Myers was non-existent for those of you that don't know. I still get people fighting me on that. It's like, listen, how old are you? I'm 25. Then shut the hell up. You weren't there. Growing up in the golden age of slasher flick, and nothing's defined the genre more than Friday the 13th. I couldn't be more excited for the opportunity to contribute to a chapter to this iconic franchise, particularly with such fearless partners as Peacock and A24. Ooh, fearless partners. That tells me if they're fearless, if Peacock and A24 are fearless, that tells me that maybe they are going to go there. Maybe they're not afraid to go there. I don't know. And that's the end of the quote. Now that Crystal Lake is back on track, expect to hear a lot more about this Friday the 13th prequel series in the coming months. So there you have it, folks. Brad Kane, showrunner on It, Welcome to Derry, has taken over as the showrunner, executive producer, and writer of the prequel Friday the 13th television series, Crystal Lake. Okay. So, listen, let me say this. You know, I've said this before. I'm going to say it again. I am not too familiar with Brad Kane's work. But of course, he's saying all the right things. You know, he obviously is a fan. He grew up through the golden age of slasher movies. And like I've said many times, not that in and of itself means that you're going to deliver a great product. I'm not saying that. I'm just simply saying that it's always a good sign that you have people involved that understand the mythology, understand what you're dealing with, what you're working with. Right? That doesn't mean the series is going to be good. That doesn't mean you're going to like what they're cooking. That doesn't mean you're going to like what they deliver, obviously. But I would much rather prefer somebody who gets it, understands it, grew up with it, right? Understands what's on the table than somebody who doesn't understand anything at all. At the same time, that also doesn't mean that somebody who doesn't understand anything, can't deliver something really great, because they can learn and, all that kind of stuff. But I like that. I like that he comes from that era. I like that he grew up through the golden age of slasher movies, like a lot of us over the age of 40 did. And certainly that's pretty cool. And I understand what he says when he means, listen, Friday the 13th was, there really is no other series that is the epitome of that golden age of B-movie slashers like Friday the 13th. And as much as we love Halloween, not to beat a dead horse, but like I've said many times, and I get challenged on this more than I think I should, Michael Myers was not around in the 80s. He was there in 81, and then he was gone until 88. And in that time frame, Jason and Freddy ruled the box office. They are the icons of the 1980s slashers. Not that Michael's not there, but Michael didn't have a resurgence really until Halloween H2O. That's when really there was a resurgence of the genre in and of itself. Because even though Halloween 4 was successful, the slasher subgenre by the time 1988 came around was already on the trajectory of going down, right? So, and then Halloween 5 was a complete disaster. Halloween 6 was a complete disaster. So it really wasn't until the late 90s when there was a resurgence, not just in Halloween, but in the slasher subgenre as a whole with Scream, I Know What You Did Last Summer, Halloween H2O, Urban Legend. It was really the late 90s 90s that allowed people to focus and pay attention to Halloween again, and all of a sudden Michael Myers was cool again. But in the 80s, man, like I said, I was there. You dress up as Michael, people thought you were Jason. It is what it is. So there is truth to what he says there, that there is not a 1980s franchise that really exemplifies the epitome, is the perfect example of the golden age of slasher than fucking Friday the 13th. The good, the bad, and the ugly. You know what I'm saying? And so there is truth to that. So I like what he has to say there. I think that's important, what he has to say. Does that mean that he's going to deliver something great? I don't know. But I will say this again, I'm going to beat a dead horse here, but it is true that it is important in today's era that there is more meat on the bone. So many people, and I wish my channel was a bit bigger than it is so I could reach more people. But so many people need to understand that it has to be more than tits, teens, and blood. It can't just be that. If all you care about is just one movie, fine. But if you want Jason to be around for a while, there's got to be meat on the bone. And that doesn't mean that you have to make it cerebral, elevated. People, they're so extreme. I hate that about life nowadays, is that nobody instills nuance anymore. When I say meat on the bone, I don't mean The Shining. I don't mean Hereditary. I don't mean going to the extreme and all of a sudden it's some pretentious, pompous, cerebral film with 375,000 different layers of psychological, sociological, social commentary. That's not what I'm talking about. But it has to be a little bit more than just teens, tits, and blood, because that's not the era we're in anymore. Now, that will do well first time around, but there's no longevity in that. That's what I'm talking about. I'm not saying that if you don't deliver a teens, tits, and blood Friday the 13th horror movie, and that's all there is, it's just teens going to a camp, getting killed. Ah, Jason, shing, 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 and then it ends and that's it. Of course that's going to do well because people are hungry for Jason, but there's no longevity in that. You can't, it's not the 1980s anymore, folks. We've evolved beyond that, right? And so that's what I'm talking about, that if you want Jason around for a while, kind of like how Michael was there for, a little bit, if you want him around for a bit to get excited about things, maybe a new movie or the next season of the show, whatever it is, there's got to be more meat on the bone. And all of you out there who are disappointed that Brian Fuller is gone, he was going to do that. He was going to do that. In his departing tweet, he said, I'm paraphrasing, but he said basically, I was really looking forward to putting more meat on the bone, to elevating it. He actually used the words elevating it. And again, that doesn't mean elevating it to Hereditary. It just means elevating it beyond what it is. Because what the 80s Friday the 13th movies are schlocky B-movie nonsense. That's what they are. And that's not going to appeal to a bigger audience today with where we are today in the world of horror and streaming and just the industry as a whole. If that's all, those kinds of movies, the Friday the 13th of the 80s kinds of movies today would be thrown on Netflix in a deep hole at the back of the horror genre. You'd have to go and look for it and you'd see it and you'd be like, what the hell is this? You know what I'm saying? That's not where we are today. So there's got to be more meat on the bone for you Friday the 13th fans. You can deliver some blood. Of course you deliver the blood. You deliver the blood. You want boobs in there? Deliver boobs in there. You want teens in there? Deliver teens in there. But it can't just be that. It has to be more for longevity for today's audiences. And if you don't think I'm right, well, okay, deliver that and then watch what happens. Because let's not forget, they did that. Actually, they even had a little more meat on the bone in the 2009 movie that came out, where they had that subplot with his where there's that guy who's going searching for his missing sister, and then of course you have. That's kind of like the B plot. A plot is, the kids at the camp and, the cabin and all that kind of stuff. You even had a little more meat. You had just a little subplot. You had a little more meat on the bone. And it still dropped like 80% at the box office its second weekend. It was a catastrophic disaster its second weekend, which is why, in part, not solely, but in part, They never made another one. And so you've got to have something, especially when you're doing a television series, right? Where you're, essentially doing 8 episodes, maybe an hour long each. That's 8 hours. You've got to have more meat on the bone in story, elevate it a little bit, get us to care about the characters. And I guarantee you, if they do that, nobody's going to give a shit. Everybody out there that's saying, no, it's just teens, tits, and blood. How hard is it to Friday? I don't want all that. I don't want all that. No, you don't know what you don't want. Because I tell you right now, they deliver something. Now, they could fuck it up too. But if they deliver something that's really meaty and juicy, and you're like, oh, this is really great. Wow, it's really cool. And it makes you see Friday, and it's really awesome. Nobody's going to give a shit. Nobody's going to care. Nobody's going to care. Winning solves everything. Fandom is like sports, ladies and gentlemen. Your favorite sports team can lose 8 in a row, and what are you all doing? Fire the coach, fire the general manager, get rid of that bum. I'm never going to another game ever again. And then all of a sudden they win 3 in a row. They're amazing. They're lovely. Oh my God, I'm getting tickets, front row. Woo! That's what it is. And that's what fandom is like, right? Fandom, the franchise fucks up for a bit. Fuck this, fuck Halloween, fuck it. And all of a sudden they deliver a really good movie. Yay, they're amazing. And it's just the way we're all like, that's the way it is. That's the way it is, right? Fandom's like sports. Fandom is sports. Fandom is fandom. Fandom is fandom, isn't it? So anyway, I'm just simply saying that's what they're going to do, because that's what Brian Fuller was going to do. And even though they may not do the same thing now that Brian Fuller was going to do, I guarantee you that Brad Kane, Brad Fuller, that Brad Kane is going to do the same thing. He's going to do like the same thing in the sense of it's not just going to be 8 episodes of schlocky teens, tits, and blood, and there's no real story. It's just there's got to be a story. There's got to be a through line. Each episode is not going to be a different movie. Each episode is going to be a different episode with a through line connecting all 8. So there's got to be characters and meat and stuff going on. There's got to be stuff going on. Meat. There's got to be juicy prime rib meat happening and layers and so there's a point and a purpose of extending this to 8 hours. You know what I'm saying? So I just think that fans, Friday the 13th fans, need to just take a step back, just relax for a moment, and just think, and go, yeah, like if I want Jason around, then it's 2024. It's not 1983 anymore. Like, it's a very different era we're in. And I understand that things have to evolve a little bit. The trick is not removing the DNA of what Friday the 13th is, right? It's about complementing it. It's about showing you what it could be today. It's not about taking it and reinventing it. It's about complementing it and showing you what it could be today. Do you know what I mean? Like in a very similar way of what Bruce and I have done with Black Christmas, right? In a similar sort of way, not exactly the same way, but in a similar way, like the principles are the same, right? That's what it's about. You don't remove the DNA. You understand what makes it work. You understand why fans really love it, and you complement it. You add to it. And having somebody who was a big fan growing up that doesn't mean it's going to be good, but certainly that is something that is a positive, right? That shows you that it could be in some competent hands here. So I'm still looking forward to this. I'm cautiously optimistic. I'm curious. I'm a big fan of A24. I do like the horror movies and the content they put out. But they also look, they're not stupid. They're not going to, it's not going to be Friday the 13th meets Hereditary. I mean, they understand that this is a slasher. They understand that there's got to be blood and gore. They understand that. And you're going to get that, but you're going to get more than that. And it's going to be a lot more fun, in my opinion. So, yeah, I'm very curious to see where this goes. Don't know where it's going to go, but very curious to see where it goes. And, yeah, I mean, it's back on track. And I'm sure in the coming months, we will have more information on this Crystal Lake TV series that A24 and Peacock are hell-bent on getting out there. So yeah, hey, listen, if you're watching after the fact, jump into the comment section, let me know your thoughts on this information and what you think about this Crystal Lake TV series. And again, I believe what the goal would be is it's a prequel, so they go back to when Jason was born or when, you know, he was a little kid or whatever. You get to know Pamela more and all that kind of stuff. But there's a through line. They don't just stay in that world. Maybe that's the first season, or maybe it's the first half a season, I don't know. But they take you through into Jason becoming Jason, the hockey mask and all that kind of stuff. I believe that was the plan before. I believe that that's part of what is still going to be the plan today, although maybe not, I don't know. But that's kind of the goal. And I'm all for that. I'm all for that. You know, I mean, like it's just, it can be more than what it is. But I think fans are, and understandably so, they are apprehensive, they are jaded, they've been wronged so many times, they've been disappointed so many times, and a lot of fans don't want to take that risk. They just want the same thing over again because it's comfortable, right? It's comfort. Just deliver me a Friday the 13th movie, right? That's what fans always say. What is it? And I hear it all the time. How hard is it to deliver a Friday the 13th movie? And then and that's always followed up with, it's just teens at a camp getting killed. You know what I mean? And it's like, yeah, and that's the problem today. That's the problem today. If that's all you want, then go watch the fucking movies. There's like 12 of them, or 13, how many? Go watch them. They're there. I mean, why would, like, there's gotta be more here, you know? Anyway. Those are my thoughts, ladies and gentlemen. Jump into the comment section below and let me know your thoughts. Let's jump over to the chat room and see what all of you are saying about this. We got a member chat comes in from Davey Deathray. He says, this sounds like A24 realizes they really messed up with Brian Fuller if they're starting from scratch with Kane and giving him total control of the show. Hopefully they've learned something. I don't know. I mean, look, Brian Fuller, you know, let's not forget, although nothing has come of it, at least yet, there were sexual allegations thrown towards Brian Fuller's way. Like a year and a half ago or wherever it was. So, you know, he's, from my understanding, he's had a habit of leaving projects over the years. Because when he left this one, some people were chiming in saying, oh yeah, he's been attached to things and left in the past. Who knows what went on behind the scenes? Maybe, and this is purely speculation, okay? This is purely speculation. Maybe A24, knowing those allegations against him, even though nothing's come of it, okay? Maybe they thought, maybe this is not a bed we want to get into. And maybe they allowed Brian Fuller to leave under his own, you know, his own power. And that's a possibility there too. It's possible that maybe they didn't see eye to eye on a few things, which apparently is the case. But I don't think that that's going to, like, again, Brian Fuller, it's not like A24 wanted to elevate it and Brian Fuller just wanted to deliver teens, tits, and blood at a camp. No, Brian Fuller wanted to elevate it. It's in his goodbye tweet. It's in his goodbye statement. All the things he wanted to do. He was talking about elevating it, making it more than what it, you know, is, showing you what it could be. He was talking about all that. He made that tweet after myself and others were talking about that that's what it should be. So, you know, there was some sort of, obviously, whether the allegations had anything to do with it, whether it was just a conflict of direction. There's a lot of stuff that goes on behind the scenes, a lot of PR, a lot of smoothing things over, delivering the sugar-coated version, right? You say this, we'll say this, we agree on this, okay, that's our statement, right? And there's always a lot of lies and a lot of truth mixed in with those lies, or a lot of truth, a lot of lies in the truth, or whatever, however you want to phrase it. You know, because public, relations and the public image of something is incredibly important, especially when you're dealing at that level with, potentially hundreds of millions of dollars at stake. Public perception and the fan perception is always important. So, who knows what the real nitty gritty was? There's always truth to every statement. But a lot of these things are often sugar-coated over because, they just kind of came out and said what actually, you know what I mean? So I don't know. I don't really know. But I do know that Bryan Fuller was not going to deliver just teens, tits, and blood. So for all you fans out there that just wanted teen, tits, and blood and are pissed off that Bryan Fuller is gone, well, he wasn't going to give you that. Well, he may have given you that, but he wasn't just going to give you that. And that's what we're talking about here. That's important. So now that Brad Kane is on board, I don't think Brad Kane is just going to give you that either. Look, you don't work with a production company like A24 and just give you teens, tits, and blood and something farting around like it's 1984. I mean, that's not what's going to happen here. There's going to be more on the bone because they see the potential of what it could be. And I'm all for that. I'm excited for that. As long as they don't remove the DNA of what a Friday the 13th, of what Friday the 13th is, and just complement it and add to it of what it could be, I'm all for it. And if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. You've got 12 fucking movies, already, right? But I think it's important, and hopefully, this is a good marriage between these guys. I don't know. Carl Weidman sends in $5. Thank you, Carl. Says, I hope Crystal Lake is really good with lots of mood and atmosphere. I hope so too. I can't wait to see Jason if the other characters and the story are done well. Yeah, absolutely. And nobody's going to care. Listen, could you imagine if they hired Mia Goth as Pamela Voorhees or Charlize Theron as Pamela Voorhees, which apparently was one of the things that Bryan Fuller wanted to do? I mean, listen, we don't even know who the cast, was going to be or is going to be. Everybody bitching and moaning, about Pamela Voorhees. Now they don't care about Pamela Voorhees. Yeah, it's because you haven't been given the opportunity to care about Pamela Voorhees. Pamela Voorhees showed up in 1980, okay? And a lot of people don't even like that movie. I like that movie. It's one of my favorites in the franchise. But I understand it's dated. It's the first one. Jason's not in it. The hockey mask, I get all that. She's the killer. I get all the things people take issue with. And, the acting's a bit theatrical. And, I get it. I get it. Okay. And the fight at the end is kind of cheesy. I get all that. Okay. And then Pamela, she showed up again in, was it Freddy versus Jason, I think, or something? Was she in that? Some brief cameo. And then, of course, the 2009 movie at the beginning. Like, you haven't been given the opportunity to see the real badass Pamela Voorhees. Like, diving into the psychological and sociological aspects of who this fucked up bitch is. Like, I'm telling you right now, like, you haven't been given that opportunity to dive into that yet. Right? Of course you don't care about her right now because you keep thinking of cheesy Betsy Palmer in 1980. I don't mean but the cheesy acting, early 80s, that's what you're thinking of, right? But there's a whole fucking character here that could be fucking badass, man. You know what I'm saying? And I guarantee you, they deliver that. All you fans going, I don't care about Pamela. All of a sudden, you're like, oh, Pamela's fucking cool. Love Pamela Voorhees. You're going to have Pamela t-shirts. You're going to be the first online going, that episode was fucking amazing. Pamela Voorhees is badass. You know what I'm saying? I forget that. That's how fandom is, right? Your team loses 5 in a row. They're dog shit. They win 3 in a row. They're amazing. I mean, this is how it is. This is how fandom is. And so, I think there's an amazing opportunity to deliver something really awesome with the Pamela Voorhees character. And you start there, right? You start there. And remember, Friday the 13th is not like Halloween, okay? I mean, not like, of course, you could demystify. It's not that there's no mystique around the character of Jason, but it's not like Halloween. I take great issue with doing anything prequel to Halloween because of the foundation for which the Michael Myers character was built. He was built on anonymity, ambiguity, the unknown, mystique. Who is he? Why is he doing it? All those kinds of things. You go back and show a prequel series with Dr. Loomis and Michael at Smith's Grove, you run the risk of demystifying the character, right? And we don't need that. Like, that's not, we don't need to know why and who and what and where and when. And I don't care. I don't need that. I know all I need to know by that fucking speech in Halloween. That's all I need to know. I watched him sitting in the room, staring at the wall, not seeing all, looking past the wall, looking at his side. Death has come to you. Like all those great rhythmic, rhyming, romantic speeches that Loomis had. That's all I need to know. Everything is there. Everything is there. I met the 6-year-old child, this blank, pale, emotionless face, the blackest eye of the devil's eyes. I spent 8 years trying to reach from them, because I realized all I had in his eyes was purely and simply objectively evil. That's all I need to know. That's all I need to know. And so, but with Jason, it's different. We know why he's doing what he's doing. He's avenging his mother's death. He apparently saw his mother get beheaded. You know what I'm saying? We know about Jason, his history. He's a mama's boy. We know what he's doing. Like, we know that. So there is room to go back and see Jason as a young boy, see the bullying, see how his mother handled that, you know, see what was their dynamic like, what was their, you know, relationship like, where's the father, was, you know, who all is that, like, that's fascinating shit. And you run, there's a better opportunity of adding to that than taking away. With Michael, you run the risk of taking away and demystifying it. Whereas Jason, you don't necessarily do that. It's the same with Freddy Krueger, right? We know the backstory of Freddy. He was a child murderer. Well, he was a molester, but you know, I don't. But you know what I'm saying? He killed little kids, right? We know all that. He was he was burned by the parents of, you know, on Elm Street, and like, we know. So doing a prequel series to Freddy Krueger and seeing Freddy Krueger before he was burned, you don't necessarily run the risk of demystifying him. I mean, you might a little bit, but not as much as you would Michael Myers. So I like the idea of going back, and if the cast is great and the writing is really good, nobody's going to give a fuck. All right, let me see here. Josh McKenna sends in $9.99. Thank you, Josh. It says, I messed with a scammer yesterday. They called me and I picked up the phone and I started talking like Billy, making creepy voices. They hung up. Listen, your prank calls aren't going to scare me, okay? Yeah, that's the way to do it. When a scammer calls you, that's the way to do it. You got to just jump right in and you got to just fuck with them. I've done that before. Not as Billy, but, you know, someone crazy. Mendel Goodman says, hey, Dave, loved your last video. Was yelling at my screen with one of the questions that you got wrong. The question, how many times did we think Michael was down just to get back up? Oh, you're talking about the member only show. Yeah. Yeah, I know. We had on the last episode of One Good Scare, which is the Halloween only show we do for my level number 2 members. If you want to get in on that, just hit that join button and join level number 2. We were doing some Halloween movie trivia, and we did two quizzes that were supposedly very difficult. And there were 25 questions between the two quizzes, and we got 23 out of the 25 right. But I was a little pissed off because we should have had all 25 right, because the last two questions, or the two questions we got wrong, were like, they were like from a certain point of view kind of questions. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, come on. You know, questions need to have concrete, factual answers. It can't be from a certain point of view. Because that's not how you do that. That's not how you do that. Even trick questions should have factual answers, right? They just might trick you with how it could be perceived or how it's worded, like a riddle perhaps. But anyway, yeah, no, it was pretty crazy. Let me see here. Davey Deathray says, I agree with Vincent DeSanti that Pamela is so vitally important to the story and that she hasn't been given the respect she deserves. I agree 100% with that. I agree. And there's such a wonderful opportunity to make fans and people care about her, you know, in ways that they haven't before. Too many fans, I don't like it. It's disappointing to me that there aren't enough fans that really do instill nuance and can think outside the box a little bit. There's so many fans I see that chat online that get so angry because they're so emotionally attached and they can't see beyond their emotions, and they can't see beyond their emotions to the potential, you know, because they just think that, like, what do you think? I mean, I think too, I think the real aversion to Pamela, really, at the end of the day, is because people want Jason. And if you're going to focus on Pamela, that means you're taking away from Jason, like hockey mask wearing Jason. And it's like, yeah, but you need to build to it. Like, they're doing a prequel series, so build to it. You know what I mean? Let's slow burn, dangle that carrot. It's going to make the payoff so much better. Like, do you want to have sex and finish in 8 seconds, or do you want to fucking build to it? You know? know what I'm saying? Are you what, you want to be a Minuteman, or do you want to anyway, I'm just saying that I think it would be awesome to go back and build and have that suspense and that roller coaster that goes up. Hockey mask Jason is coming. He's coming back, but they're not giving it to you right away. They're not peaking too soon. And you don't want to peak too soon in a television series format. I personally still don't think you should peak too soon in movie format either, but you have all this time. Take that time, develop the characters, make us care about the characters, make us see Friday the 13th from a perspective we've yet to see before, but something that makes us go, oh, this is fucking great. It's layered, it's deep. I'm not saying it's overly cerebral. I'm just saying in comparison to the 1980 schlocky B movies. Because that's what they are. They're schlocky B movies. They were schlocky then, they're schlocky now. And I say that in all the best ways possible because I love them just as much as you guys. But that's what they are. There's nothing, and that's why fans say, well, but that's not going to do well today. It's not going to do well today. And then people like to use the comparison of Terrifier. They say, what about Terrifier? And then I have to say, yeah, but Terrifier is different. Terrifier is an exploitative splatter movie. Terrifier has a hook. There's a gimmick. There's a shtick to Terrifier. It's how much bloodier and gross and grotesque can we get with each movie. That's the gimmick. That's why you're going to see Terrifier. I mean, it's not saying but that is ultimately why you're going. You're going to see how much more bloodier can it be than the bedroom scene. That's why you saw part 2. How much bloodier can this be than the hacksaw scene in part 1? There's a shtick. There's what they call a hook to the Terrifier films. That's why they do. That's why there's this, and there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not knocking it. I'm just saying that's why you go. Terrifier's different. If Terrifier was a mainstream, just run-of-the-mill, pedestrian slasher movie that was rated by the MPA, the Motion Picture Association of America, you would not have all that grotesque, crazy, wild, in-your-face, splatter, gruesome, off-the-wall, blood, guts, and gore scene. You wouldn't have that because the MPA would be like, yeah, no, you can't do this, right? So, if it was just a regular run-of-the-mill slasher movie like a Thanksgiving or something like that, it wouldn't be a big deal, but it's a big deal because Damien Leone decided not to go the studio route, go the independent route, not be rated by the MPA, so he can stick that. There's a hook. That's the shtick. Blood, guts, and gore. I'm not knocking it. I'm just saying that's Terrifier. That's why you're going. I want to go and see how more bloodier and crazier and all that. That's why you're going. And of course, you hope there's a story and that you like the movie. Of course. But that's the hook. That's the shtick. And so it's very different. It's not the same. I understand why on the surface you might think it's the same, right? But it's really not the same. It's very different. And so with Friday the 13th, you either turn Friday the 13th into Terrifier, right? And give it that hook and that shtick to draw people in, which obviously you don't want to do because then that's making it like Terrifier, not Friday the 13th. But if it's going to be a mainstream slasher, then that kind of thing for longevity doesn't do well today. Longevity doesn't do well today. So especially in the world of like a Friday the 13th, that's why, in part, why the 2009 movie failed. In part, not solely. Member chat comes in from Power Packers 90. Thanks, buddy. Says, hey, I think a Halloween prequel only works as a Loomis backstory with a finale scene behind him becoming Michael's doctor and meeting 6-year-old Michael as he stares at a wall with the devil's eyes. Well, here's the thing. Here's the issue I have with a prequel series to Dr. Loomis. And why I don't want one either. Of course, if they do one, I'll watch it. And maybe it'll be great. And maybe all my worries will be absolutely put to bed. But at face value on paper, this is one of the reasons why I have an issue with a Loomis-only prequel series. Because Dr. Loomis, my understanding is that Dr. Loomis, before Michael Myers, was a pretty pedestrian, run-of-the-mill maybe pedestrian is not the right word, because but a standard run of the mill, very good child psychiatrist, right? And his career and his life was pretty normal, right? That's not an interesting prequel series. Just to see a day in the life of Dr. Loomis? I feel, and my worry is, that if they do a prequel series with Dr. Loomis, like before Myers, like say we go and we watch his life in the 50s or something, my worry is that they're going to make the series interesting, they're going to have to give him, very much almost like what they did with John McClane in Die Hard. It's a very similar thing. And I'll explain what that is in a second. So, Dr. Loomis's life was pretty normal before this. And in order to make the series interesting, they're going to have all these crazy fucked up children that are, mysterious and eerie and weird and add a little bit of the supernatural in there. And it's like, no. Because then that just waters down Michael Myers. It was Michael Myers that changed Loomis's perspective. It was Michael Myers that changed Dr. Loomis's outlook. Dr. Loomis, a man of science, right? He's not woo-wooing in the supernatural. He's a man of science. It was Myers. I spent 8 years trying to reach him and then another 7 trying to keep him locked up because I realized that what was living behind that boy's eyes was purely and simply evil. That's a strange, powerful statement to come from a doctor, a man of science, a psychiatrist who treats people with medication, who diagnoses people with all different kinds of psychological and sociological disorders and mental health disorders. That's a powerful statement coming from that man. And so Michael Myers, he was just a normal doctor before that. You don't want to set him up in a hospital with, now he's got, Jeffrey and little Julie and all these crazy guys. Yeah. And if they're just going to be run of the mill everyday mental health issues, not that that's, I'm not trying to make light of that. I'm just saying, there's nothing supernatural. Then it's not something I want to see. I don't think the formative years, or not the formative years, but I don't think the pre-Michael Myers years of Loomis should be anything to write home about. I don't think those years should be that interesting. I don't think there really should be anything in those years that is crazy. Now, that doesn't mean he doesn't meet some difficult children or some maybe spastic, outlandish kids, but nothing that would ever even come close to the fucking little kid he met in 1963. And so that's why I don't think they should do a Dr. Loomis prequel series, because I think it only will water down him meeting Myers, in my opinion. Now, that doesn't mean there isn't a way that you can do it. But going back to the Die Hard thing, right? Do you remember when they were going to do a prequel to Die Hard? They were going to hire a new actor to be a young John McClane. And I said, whoa. No, there should never be a prequel to Die Hard. Never. And why? Because John McClane, before the events of Die Hard, 1988, the first movie with Hans Gruber, before those events, we were given the impression that he was just a regular cop. He was a good cop. He was a very good cop, street smart cop, smart aleck cop. He was good. He was a good cop. But he had never experienced anything that even remotely came close to what he experienced in Die Hard. That's why it worked. He was a fish out of water. He was a regular Joe. He wasn't the muscle-bound Arnold Schwarzenegger. He wasn't the muscle-bound Sylvester Stallone. Do you know what I'm saying? He was just a regular cop. Fuck, his face wasn't... Bruce Willis's face wasn't even on the original poster because they were afraid that it would go against the movie because he wasn't Sly or Schwarzenegger. Do you know what I mean? And so that's why it worked. You do a prequel to Die Hard. What? No, you then have to create wild and crazy stories with John Then all of a sudden, the cop he is in Die Hard is very different. He's experienced this before. He's gone through this before. He's met crazy terrorists before. And that wasn't the case in Die Hard. He was just a regular cop, a regular Joe, a regular everyday guy that found himself. He was an ordinary cop in a extremely extraordinary situation. And that's why that character works, right? So it makes no, and I remember reading about this saying, it was going to be a young Bruce Willis when he was in New York or something. And, and he's, and he gets himself into some crazy plot thing or, some crazy, and I'm like, well, No, because then you're going to have wild, because it would have been a modern action movie. So you're going to have wild explosions and car chases. And I'm just like, that's not who John McClane was in 1988. Now, thankfully, they abandoned that. I don't necessarily think it was for that reason, but they abandoned it, at least so far. I haven't heard anything about it. And I kind of feel that way about Loomis as well, that you do a Loomis prequel series, you're going to make it interesting, you're going to have him meeting all sorts of crazy fucked up kids. Like, I mean, fucked up beyond just like, oh, you have this, here's medication, you'll be fine. Like, you're going to have to add the supernatural in there. You know what I mean? And before Michael Myers, there was no supernatural. That's what made Loomis so obsessed with Myers, is because he had never experienced anything like it before. He had never seen anything like it before. And he couldn't solve it. He, as a doctor, couldn't solve it. He couldn't diagnose it. He couldn't treat it. He couldn't fucking figure it out. And it ate Dr. Loomis alive. And that's why he was obsessed with keeping him behind bars, right? In that sanitarium, because he was so obsessed with it. If he had experienced little Myerses before, then Myers wouldn't have been a big deal. And I don't think we need that at all. That's my opinion, of course, on that. Carl Wyman sends in another $5. Thanks, Carl. Says, I'm with you. I like the first Friday the 13th, too. I also like Sackhead Jason, who might be scarier and more creepier than Hockey Mask Jason. I do, too. Look, I'm a big fan of the Sack. I'm a big fan of the Sack. A big fan of Sackhead Jason. Alex Shambach, been a member, sends in a member chat, says, Dave, I think it'd be cool to wait 4 or so episodes of Jason's initial reveal. Really build up his inevitable arrival. I have faith in A24. Still a bit salty they did not get the Halloween rights. Yeah, I think you could do that. Look, I would be okay with building an entire season around Pamela. And then at the end of that season, you tease the return of Jason in the next season. Like, I mean, adult hockey mask wearing Jason. I would be okay with it. And if it's compelling writing, great characters, great TV, nobody's going to give a shit. I mean, you always have them, in the corners. I mean, they're always there. They're probably watching right now. That's what they are. But the people that understand it and get it are going to be like, yeah, like, this is great. You know what I mean? Totally. Rosalia is here. Hey, Rosalia, what's going on? Flet's Movie Pop Culture 13, Aaron Click, Jason Voorhees, Zodiac Z, Jamie Hart is here, Aaron Click, Coyote, is that how you say that? Coyote? I'm not sure if I said that right. Brandon Collins is here. Brandon Collins says, audiences these days are used to storylines that extend to multiple films and episodes. The days of 24 episode seasons with no connective tissue are gone. I agree. Unless, of course, you're, a situated comedy on network television, which is not really around too much anymore. But no, listen, I agree with you. And also gone are the days where you can deliver, like today. Okay, so when you look at the first 5 Friday the 13th movies, right? Even though Friday the 13th Part 5, A New Beginning, doesn't have Jason in it. It's, the ambulance driver, Roy. When you look at the formula of those first 5 Friday the 13th, it doesn't mean there's not differences. It doesn't mean there's not a story at all. But when you look at those first 5 Friday the 13th movies, the formula is virtually identical. It is copy and paste. Like, it is what it is. Again, it doesn't mean there's not differences. There are, but generally speaking, overall, it is copy and paste, right? Wash, rinse, repeat, whatever the hell the saying is. Copy and paste. And you couldn't do that today. You could not deliver those 5 Friday the 13th movies today and be successful. You just couldn't do it. And that's the point that I and people like Vincent DeSanti and others and Brian Fuller and we're making. That you just can't do. It's different. It's different. Even women getting naked today is, I mean, people still do it. Sydney Sweeney. Not that I'm complaining, but I mean, there are people that still do it, but it's not as it's not as fast and loose and sure, I'll take off my, it's not like it was back then. There's intimacy coordinators now. There's a whole, you want girls in your horror movies to get naked. First of all, you got to find an actor willing to do it. Okay. And a lot of women aren't willing to do it anymore. I know there's Sydney Sweeney. I'm just saying, as a whole, okay, it's a touchy area now because of a lot of shit that's gone down in the industry. And is it like, do we need it? A lot of actors are more willing to push back now because they understand, no, I don't need to do this to get ahead. I don't need to show my fucking tits on screen to get ahead. Whereas years and years and years ago, you know what I mean? And so it's a different. It doesn't mean that there aren't still boobs in horror movies and that there isn't an actress that'd be willing to do it. There are, and it's built into their contract and, and all that kind of shit. But I'm just saying that it's not like it was 40 years ago. And so it's different today. Those kinds of movies, you just can't have like a copy and paste. You can have that, but there's got to be more substance. There's got to be more meat on the bone to help, to help elevate it into a new territory that can be attractive to a broader audience, attractive to, the networks, attractive to the streaming services, attractive to the actors, the producers, everybody. It's just got to be more attractive all around because if not, then you can kiss Jason goodbye. He will come, he will be there once, and he will die. Because you just can't deliver that formula like you could in the 80s. It's different. Horror's not what it used to be, All right. Have I got all the super chats? I just want to make sure I've got all the super chats. I believe I do. I don't think, not too many came in, so I just want to make sure I've got them all. Oh, hang on a sec. Simon Mills sends in a member chat and says, exactly, Dave. We need foreplay before the climax. Imagine building up to Hockey Jason. Yes, that's a great way to put it. That's a great way to put it. Listen, I know there's some guys out there that don't need foreplay and they're just, ready to go at the touch of their arm. But, treat Jason like a woman. You know what I mean? You got to warm them up. You got to warm them up. What you got to do. Treat it. You don't just go for it. You got to treat it. You know what I mean? And it's going to be a lot better. You need some foreplay in there before the fun begins. I mean, foreplay is fun, but I just mean, the end destination. But it's true though, right? And you guys know me. I'm a big fan of slow burn and building and I hate when I watch a horror movie and it peaks too soon. I hated that about The Conjuring. The Devil Made Me Do It. Oh my God. Listen, I'm all for I just hated the fact that that's what I still say today that the first Insidious and the first The Conjuring, not that The Conjuring 2 wasn't good, but the first Insidious and the first The Conjuring are two of the best mainstream studio released horror movies of the last 25 years. I'm not saying I'm saying they're up, I would put them up there, The Ring, The Invisible Man, The Others, you know what I mean? Like mainstream, not coming from the independent scene where a distributor picks it up, like Smile or something like that. I'm talking about like mainstream, studio released, and both those movies had slow burns. You know what I mean? They didn't peak too soon. Watch the first Conjuring. Oh, it's beautiful. Beautifully shot, beautifully directed, nice slow burn. James Wan dangles that carrot, as you move along. It's so great. It's so great. And then you look at The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It, and there's like wild, crazy ass special effects in the first 5 minutes of that movie. And I'm like, I feel like I've just watched a whole movie already. Like people are being thrown and crazy shit is happening. I'm just like, there's nowhere to go for me. I'm desensitized already. There's nowhere for me to go. So yeah, I'm a big fan of that stuff. Big fan of that stuff. Alley Girl says, sex talk with Dave. Sunday night sex with Dave. And our first caller is John Pritzlaff. Pritzlaff says, as long as it ties into the Thorn Cult and Silver Shamrock Corp, I'm on board. Oh God, no, John. No. I would not want that at all. Aaron Click says it can be called Die Hardly or Hardly Die Hardly. Yeah. Or Hardly Die. Die Hardly or Hardly Die. I don't know. Maybe. Jason Voorhees says, Halloween doesn't need a prequel. Friday the 13th does. The Friday universe is so convoluted. Yes, we need answers. I don't think so. I agree with you that the Halloween series does not need a prequel. I don't think anybody needs it. I don't think the Friday the 13th does either. I don't think Elm Street does either. But Elm Street and Friday the 13th are, because of the inception of their foundation, because of how their main antagonists were built, because of how their stories were built, there is room where you can do that. You can go back and do that, and you don't run the risk, like I said earlier in the show, of demystifying the movies, or the character, I'll say, the main character, demystifying him at the detriment of, like, you don't run the risk of demystifying him to the point where there's no longer any mystique. Because we already know so much about Freddy Krueger's backstory and Jason's backstory. With Michael Myers, we know nothing. I mean, listen, yes, if you watch the Thorn trilogy, you know, but I'm just saying, like, in a general sense, we know nothing. We don't know why, you know, and if you're, and of course, well, I guess we do know why if you follow 4, 5, and 6, but I'm just saying that if you want to do something with Halloween 78, go back to those roots, pretend the other sequels don't exist kind of thing. We don't know why. There's a and that's why it works. That's the whole point. That's what so many fans, and I'm not talking about anybody specific, I just mean in a general sense, I find that's what so many fans don't understand. That's why it works. The whole point is not knowing. That's the point. You're not supposed to know. Like, that's the whole point, right? You know, it's so like, again, like the original Halloween has a beginning, a middle, and an end. Laurie Strode has an arc in that movie. Michael's gone at the end of the movie, not to set up a sequel. He's gone to bring home the message of the movie, which is you can't kill the boogeyman, and complete Laurie's arc. Laurie doesn't say, was that the boogie? Laurie doesn't say, was that the boogeyman? Or what's the boogeyman? She doesn't say that. She says, it was the boogeyman. It was it sounds like she says, 'twas the boogeyman. 'Twas the boogeyman. That's basically what she's saying, is 'twas the boogeyman. It's because it was, that gets lost in her performance. I've done a whole video on it. It's in the script, the original Halloween script. Jamie Lee Curtis confirmed it. Sean Clark has confirmed it as well. No, what she actually says is, she says it was the boogeyman, but it sounds like 'twas the boogeyman, because she's making a statement. She's making a factual statement because she suddenly realized, oh my God, Tommy was right. It was the boogeyman. And and then Dr. Loomis says, as a matter of fact, it was. And that's the ending. No matter how wrong, no matter how many other places you see it incorrect, whether it's in that David Gordon Green Halloween book, whether it's on a fucking t-shirt, whether it's on a poster, or wherever it is, in some write-up think piece on the original film, it is not Jamie Lee Curtis saying, was that the boogeyman, or what's the boogeyman? It is not that. It was the boogeyman, because she's basically just going, holy shit, it was. As a matter of fact, it was. You know, and then he's gone, and that's it. That's the Myers mystique. That's the whole point of that movie. Laurie actually has an arc, believe it or not. She goes from not believing to believing. That's the whole point. And basically all Dr. Loomis had to do was turn to the camera and break the fourth wall and say, and now you will believe too. You know, I mean, that's really, because now he's gone, you know? And so, but that mystique is so integral and important to the Michael Myers character. That ambiguity that ambiguity is just so vital. It's not the same for Freddy and Jason. There's so much more room. I don't think it's needed, but certainly there is a sandbox to play in. There is a definite sandbox to play in for sure. Definitely. Member chat from Josh McKenna says, was Duel a TV movie? It was. It's very hard for me to imagine a world where a Spielberg movie is a TV movie. Duel is better than a TV movie. Spielberg is my favorite director, so it's weird to me. Well, Duel was 1971, and it was Steven Spielberg's first major directing role. He had directed some TV before that, but it was, yes, it was a TV film. And I think it's great. I think Duel is a terrific film. And if you haven't seen Steven Spielberg, the legendary, director, in my opinion, the greatest filmmaker of all time, and there's reasons for that I've gone into on other shows. It is his first film, Duel, 1971, right before he did the Sugarland Express, and then of course he went and did Jaws. But Duel is great, and there's a lot of terrific suspense, and there's a lot of Jaws in Duel, really, or a lot of Duel in Jaws, I guess I should say. But yeah, it was a TV movie, and it's a great film. Great film. One of my favorites of all time, for sure. Let me see here. John Pritzlav says, Dave, do you ever wish that Jamie Lee Curtis had delivered that line more clearly? Do I wish it? I guess only from a perspective that, maybe I can stop gatekeeping with it. No, look, I always like to share that. And like I said, it was confirmed. It is in the script as well. If you download the original Halloween script, which you can do, it says it was the boogeyman. Like, that's her line there. And Jamie Lee Curtis confirmed it a number of years ago at a convention. She said, no, she didn't even know that there was a debate over it. She said, no, I said it was the boogeyman, because she understood from a character perspective, right? Her character's arc, she understood that at that moment she was realizing the truth, right? So she said, no, it was the boogeyman, and Sean Clark also confirmed it as well, because obviously he's good friends with her. But I do understand why it's confusing, because it really comes off like this. This is really what it's like. Was the boogeyman. That's what it is. Was the boogeyman. Was the boogie. But those who, to me, it sounds like, was the boogeyman, Those who think it sounds like, what's the boogeyman? I'm like, what's the boogeyman? Anyway, yeah, but that's okay. I'm here to gatekeep it. Piss people off. That's so funny. Let me see here. See if I can get somebody okay, hang on. Let me just make sure I've got all the super chats. I believe I do. Just want to make sure I do. Let me see if I can get somebody I haven't gotten. Go back. Will Banks says Terrifier is actually scary and tries to be horror and not goofy like Friday the 13th. I don't know about that, Will. I respect your opinion on that, Will. I do, but I would disagree. I do not find, this is my opinion. You have your opinion. This is my opinion. I do not find the Terrifier films scary. I think the Terrifier films could be scary. But for me personally, I don't find them scary. I think the gore is, and I'll be very curious to see what they do with Terrifier 3, because the gore for me, and I only speak for myself, is certainly in Terrifier 2. And I've only seen both films once, but from what I remember, for me, it's borderlining that it's so gory and so over the top that for me, it's beginning to borderline that it goes from gross to comical, because it's just so ridiculous. Do you know what I mean? And so I'll be very curious to see how they step up the gore in 3 and still maintain that air of seriousness in a lot of ways. Because for me, I would think, now he is a clown, he's a mime and he's a clown, so maybe that's their intention. They want to make it funny, but people just, I wouldn't want people laughing at it. I would want people being frightened by it and horrified by it. Kind of like a Saw or a Hostel or something, right? But then again, that's also not necessarily the Terrifier sort of thing. But yeah, I wouldn't necessarily say that Friday the 13th is also scary either, but I think there's aspects of Friday the 13th that are scarier than Terrifier. Again, I've only seen both movies once, and I think there's some great mood in Terrifier. There's, especially that first film was very grungy, independent, dark. You know what I mean? Like there's some good scary things, but overall I don't find Art the Clown particularly scary because he's so over the top. But that's me. That's not a knock on the film. That's just me where I am in my world of horror. But I do respect his place in horror and how a lot of people love him. And there's lots like yourself who find him scary. So that's all. I mean, listen, if he showed up at my door in the middle of the night at 3 a.m. standing there watching me, that'd be pretty fucking scary. No doubt about it. For sure. All right, let me see here. Did I get, hang on a sec. Hang on. Let me see. I thought member chat. Got the Josh McKenna one. Eddie Chase sends in $10. Thanks, Eddie. Says, you talked about and properly trashed the infamous Halloween 5 closet scene Rachel kill. I did. But speaking as a writer-director, how would you dissect and improve it to be suspenseful, cat and mouse, cool idea for a video? Yeah, that is a cool idea for a video. Yeah. Yes, I did. It's the scene in Halloween 5 when Michael is watching Rachel from the closet. And Rachel just gets out of the shower. You all know the scene I'm talking about. And there's a bit of a POV shot from within the closet. You see Don Shank's hand, on the bar. And then Rachel is, I guess, looking in her vanity mirror or something like that. And she's looking at something she's going to try on or put on, I should say. And then you see Shanks in the dreaded Myers mask come out of the closet and just kind of skip town and leave. My issue with that scene, there's a number of things I have an issue with. Number one, and in no particular order, number one is you see him in broad daylight. You see the mask and it's an evenly lit scene. Now you do kind of see him in a little bit of the darkness when he's in there, but when he exits the closet, it's just, there's no atmosphere. There's no mood. There's no oomph to him. I also don't believe in his motivation. Now, when I say motivation, I don't mean motive. I mean motivation. His motivation is to kill, right? That's different than motive. They can be interconnected, but I'm speaking differently. Even though at this point it's the Thorn trilogy, and I guess he's got motive as well. But anyway, why did he leave? Like, from a writing perspective, this makes no sense. I don't believe he would leave. There is an opportunity for him to kill Rachel. It's right there. There is no reason for Michael to step out of the closet and leave the bedroom. I don't believe in the motivation of the writing. As an audience member, I don't believe you. I don't believe you. It takes me out of it. I don't believe you. And you put that on top of the fact that the mask looks like wide as hell and it's all over here and it's not a very good mask. And all of a sudden he's in the bedroom and, he's brightly lit and, all that. And the way he comes out of the closet because of the bar, it looks awkward. He doesn't glide out, and just kind of turn and move. He just kind of does one of these. He's got to move his head out and it's just awkward. It's frumpy. So there's all those things about that I just don't like. How would I improve it? I would leave him in the closet. Just leave him in the closet with his mask in the darkness staring at her. Done. That's all. And he doesn't come out of the closet. She's there, right? Maybe we track her. We put the camera on a Steadicam and we track her. So we see him in the closet, right? It's the same framing. I don't know at that moment if the camera was on sticks or if it was if it was Steadicam. I don't think it was. I think it was a pretty stable shot. But nonetheless, I would move with her. So build suspense in the scene. There's no suspense in that scene. There's a little bit of suspense when she goes to the closet and he's in the closet and you see his hand come up onto the bar. A little bit. That's pretty good. That's not bad. But then when we reverse it and we're out with Rachel, right? And we're there, leave him in there. So we can see him in the background. We see him, maybe put like some sort of like sweater so it's only half of his face and you can kind of see him, you know? Put a light in there, like a closet light or something, you know, tungsten balanced light so it's maybe a bit warm and it's kind of coming down on one side of his face, but very softly, you know, just kind of, it's eerie. It's dimly lit and it's sort of eerie, you know, something like that. Because it is daytime, so it's not going to be daylight. It's not going to be moonlight. And then just leave him in there. Don't have him exit. Leave him in there. And then build the scene of suspense with her. Maybe she goes back to the closet again, looks for something else. You hear his breathing. So we know he's in there. We're like, fuck, he's in there, you know? And then maybe she comes back again and he's there. He's still there. It's like, what the fuck's going on? And then maybe this is where you'd put the camera on, or you could put the camera on sticks and just pan, but maybe she leaves her vanity mirror. She goes across the room to something else, right? She picks up something. We come back, we follow her, we come back, we land in the same spot that we were, but he's gone. He's not there. It's like, how the fuck did he leave the room without her noticing? Her back was only to the closet for like 5 seconds. That's some cool fucking shit. That's some cool fucking shit. And way better than poor Dawn Shanks awkwardly having to come out of the closet, you know, and then just leave. Why didn't Michael Myers, from a narrative perspective, pounce on her? And then fans will say, well, because he needed to go get something and he really wanted to kill her in the other room when he was looking at the No. If that's the case, then you've got to make that clear. Because Michael Myers would not come out of the closet, look at his prey right there and go, nah, and leave. Like, that's just not, no. So I don't believe it. I don't buy it from a writing perspective. And I think the whole scene could have been built better. And it doesn't take much. Like what I just told you right here was just off the top of my head. I haven't thought about this. Just off the top of my head. And I think that would have been better and more in line with Michael's MO. But they didn't do that. But you know what? Maybe this will be a good topic for a video. Clip it out. I don't know. Let me see here. We've got Carl Wyman sends in $5, says, is there any news in the area of A Nightmare on Elm Street? Also, if they did a new series, how far should they go with Freddy Krueger's background? I haven't heard anything in regards to A Nightmare on Elm Street. Not that I'm aware of. And how far should they go in Freddy Krueger's background? Well, listen, look, the child molesting thing is always a hot topic. That's what he was. That's been confirmed by Bob Shea. That's been confirmed by Wes Craven. That's what he was. But when the film became so successful and little kids started to like Freddy Krueger, they decided to kind of pull back on that a bit. And in subsequent sequels, he's not a child molester, he's a child killer. Okay, but listen, I'm not a child killer, so I don't know. But I don't think it's much of a stretch to assume that if you have an obsession with killing children, that you probably also have something else going on too. I mean, I think it would be weird that if you have an obsession that you kill children only, but you don't have that going on either. Like, well, then why kids? Like, why? Like, I don't, you know what I mean? So I think it was when they changed him from a molester to a child killer. I hate to say this, but it's kind of just semantics at this point. I think although they never leaned heavily into it ever again, I don't think they will ever lean, although they did lean into it in the remake in 2010, they totally leaned into it. And that was one of the things that and I was okay with that. Because, I hate to say it, folks, but at the end of the day, that's that was the roots of the inception of that character. And like I said, then little kids like me who were like 7, 8, 9 years old, you know, who were really getting into it was like, oh, that's kind of awkward. I don't know if we can promote this. Hey kids, hey. And Freddy was marketed towards kids as well, you know? So it's kind of like, you know, hey, here's these little Freddy Krueger kid costumes. Don't you want to be a child molester this Halloween, young boy? It's like, oh God, you know, so they had, when Freddy really took off, you know, and really started to, you know, cross into the zeitgeist, they had to dial that back. That's really back. And they did. But I was there and I remember, so, I mean, again, I was very young, but so how far should they go? Whatever makes sense for the story, you know, whatever makes sense for the story, you know, but be mindful that it is a very touchy subject, a very difficult subject, a very raw subject for a lot of people. And it's probably best not to lean heavily into that. It's the same thing that Bruce and I did with It's Me, Billy. You know, there is a strong sexual component to the character of Billy. He's a rapist, really, at the end of the day. I mean, that's, you know, he's a killer and he's a, you know, he stalks women. And although it wasn't overtly said outright in the original film, it was heavily alluded to. There was a lot of funky, weird, crazy shit going on, not just in those phone calls. So Bruce and I decided to, you know, pull that back a little bit, right? It's a different era now, a different time, but not remove it completely. Because you remember when he's up in the attic, he's caressing this doll. And so, you know, we didn't remove that from Billy. We drew a little bit of a hint there, you know, to the kind of person he is, but we didn't lean so heavily into it. It's just a reminder that yes, this is still Billy. This is still that character. He's still that way. But it's important that when you are dealing with that subject matter, especially in 2024, yeah, you do have to be careful. I mean, unless you're doing a documentary or something like that and you got to lean heavily into all that shit. But if it's not crucial to the story in terms of how heavily you lean into it, then I think keeping it on the peripheral and sort of just kind of, it's there and oh yes, okay, it's there, it's this person, you know, whatever, then I think that's okay too. Unless you are writing a story where you lean heavily into that, and I'm all for that. I'm all for the art is art. I'm all for that. But I can also understand why when you're dealing with these classic characters that were created at a different time in a different era, why, and you're bringing those characters back into the 21st century, why you do have to think about those things. And we thought long about those things. That's why when you hear my phone calls, you know, in the first It's Me, Billy, you know, I don't lean heavily into something overtly sexual or gross or all that kind of stuff. It's still Billy. And you still get the air of that. You still get that sense of it. But, you know, we made a conscious choice to just kind of give that essence, but also understand the era that we're in. But it also wasn't, but if we had written a story where, and we have no issues doing this, if we had written a story where it was vitally important for our character to say those things and go there, we would have done it. I would have done it 100%. But it wasn't, because the character was already established in the 1974 film. You know who he is. And then we do give you a weird kind of scene in the attic, right? We give you that sexualized sort of scene in the attic. So, and then we sort of, so just to let you know, yeah, this is Billy, you know what I mean? So, yeah, you know, you've got to be careful, you know, with what you do and how you handle it and be sensitive. But at the same time, I'm all for going there if it's properly motivated and it makes sense to the story. It's absolutely vital and important to the story. Freddy Krueger being a molester, a killer, that's not important to the story. He killed little kids. Okay. He killed little kids. You know, it's a slasher movie, for God's sakes, right? It's a slasher movie. Okay, have I got all the super chats? Do I got all the super chats? Member chat, Peter Juan says, love the trailer, Dave. You and Bruce should be very proud of what you guys have made. Looking forward to the release. Thanks, man. I really appreciate that. Yeah, continue to watch it. Continue to share it out. I think it's closing in on about 4,500 views now, which is great. I know across all platforms, so Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube, when you combine all the views up across all platforms, I think we're over 20,000 views now, because on YouTube it's got about 4.3 thousand. Facebook it had over 7,000. Instagram was like 5,000 or 6,000. Twitter was like 2,000 or something. It was seen like 7,000 times, but actual clicks on the trailer on Twitter, I think, was like 2,000 or something. So we've done very well. Like when you look at across all platforms, the trailer's been seen like, I think, over 20,000 times or something like that, which is great. But yeah, let's keep sharing it out. Keep sharing it out. Keep getting it out there. Collider picked us up, which is great. Bloody Disgusting did. I think also, this morning I saw that MSN did as well. So we were on the MSN.com homepage. I didn't send a release or anything. They picked us up from Collider, which is really cool. So it was really cool to see us on the MSN.com homepage, which was great. So yeah, like but we need more people to put it out there, get it out there. It's getting out there. I'm proud of the work that we've done. Yeah, like I being that it's the 50th anniversary this year, being that, we're a total, legit production, Lynn Griffin is back. There's no reason why, this thing can't gain more traction. So, continue to share, continue to promote. If you have your own YouTube channel, do a reaction video. Don't pretend like you haven't seen it yet, unless you haven't seen it yet, but just do a reaction video. Talk about the trailer. If you've got a podcast, talk about it. Yeah, just kind of put it out there. The more, the better. We really, really appreciate any help, any momentum that we can get, is greatly appreciated. Because again, we're not Freddie, we're not Jason, we're not Michael, so we don't have that name, that powerful name behind us. So we're the little guy, so we need all that help that we can get because of the IP. But thank you, Peter. I really appreciate that. Thank you so much. Much appreciated. Okay, have I got all the super chats? I believe I have. I just want to make sure that I have. We shall see. So I make sure. Okay, another 5 minutes or so, and then we'll call it a day. This has been a good show today, I think. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed it. Bob Birkin says, having budget, I would make a remake of the Neon Maniacs with all the Bigfoot stop and aliens would make a hit. I'm not familiar with the Neon Maniacs. I'll have to check that out, Bob. Thanks for doing that. Thanks for sending that, or mentioning that. Kenny Pham, is that how you say that? I think that A Nightmare on Elm Street's series peaked in 1988 with A Nightmare on Elm Street 4, The Dream Warriors. I agree. I think that's where it peaked, and then it was all downhill from there. Well, Wes Craven's New Nightmare, I do quite like, not just because I played Freddy Krueger in the unofficial sequel, but I do quite like it, but it didn't do very well because it was before its time. I think if New Nightmare had come out after Scream, then it may have done a bit better, but obviously it was sort of a little ahead of its time, I think, with the whole meta approach. Lance Noonan says, if somebody is sensitive to it, then why watch the films? I'm confused. Well, but it has to be properly motivated. That's my point, right? It can't just be there for the sake of it being there. I agree with you, by the way, 100%. I agree with you 100%. Don't like it, don't watch it. Don't like me, don't watch me. It's that simple. I absolutely agree with you. But from a writing perspective, we were writing a story and we looked at it and we said, well, do we need to throw all this sexual stuff in there? Is it part of the story? And it wasn't. If it was part of our story, if it was crucial to our story, Bruce and I would have done it. We would have done it 100%. but we didn't want to just throw it in there for the sake of throwing it in there, right? Because remember, we're doing a story that's 50 years later, right? Where is Billy right now? Where is he mentally, psychologically, all this kind of stuff. And so, because it's not like he got help, right? And so, but that doesn't necessarily mean that he would be more sexual. That doesn't necessarily mean that he would be more vulgar in a sexual way, right? It could mean that, but not necessarily. So we did very extensive, deep writing and brainstorming sessions on Billy. It's one of the reasons why we showed you Billy from a point of view that you've never seen him before. Because we sat there and we thought, how do we evolve a character? We're doing a sequel to Black Christmas. Billy is largely ambiguous, right? It's just shadows and eyes and shit. We don't see him. Well, we can't just do the same thing over. We don't want to just do the same thing over again. It's 50 years later. We're not doing our own version of that movie. We're doing a fucking sequel and we're taking it fucking seriously. So how do we evolve a character? How do we push a character forward that must remain largely ambiguous and unknown to the audience? Well, how do we do that? Well, we can't tell you more about his backstory because that's going to open it up and demystify him. So what do? I know. Let's keep him in shadow. Let's keep his face hidden in shadow. But let's show the audience the character from a perspective they haven't seen before. And that is how we are evolving the character without evolving the character, if you know what I mean. And the same thing will happen in chapter 2 as well. It's not like you're going to see his face or all of a sudden you're going to get this laundry list of, who he is and where he grew up and where he went to school and, what his major was and, all that kind of stuff. No, none of that. But we had to figure out ways to evolve and push a character forward that must remain largely ambiguous. How do you do that? Well, here's one way we do it. And even though you saw Billy in terms of his body, you saw his body more than you saw in the original Black Christmas, you never saw him. You never saw his face. It's not like we told you more about him or his backstory or anything. He's just still this enigma. But you got to see his body a little bit more, a perspective you've yet to see. So that's how we pushed him just a little bit forward without going too far. And it's the same thing in chapter 2. If you look at all the promotional material, you look at that shot of Billy at the end of the trailer, right? Where he's just standing there looking at you, sizing you up. You see him, but you don't see him. And that's how you can only do that. Because beyond that, you got to step into the world of showing him and divulging deep into his backstory, which is just not, you can't do that. You can't do that. But I agree with you. In principle, I absolutely agree. For us, it just wasn't, we thought about do we need to go there? Like when I'm writing the dialogue and do I need to say all this? And I don't, because there's other things he's saying that tells us where he is now. I don't want to just shoehorn in something just for the sake of it when it's not needed, right? It has to be properly motivated. You know what I mean? But I do agree with you, Lance. I do 100%. Okay, 2 more minutes, folks. 2 more minutes left in the show. Member chat comes in from BB Haunted Basement. Says, Dave, love the channel and can't wait for chapter 2. Thank you very much, buddy. And thank you for being a member for 5 months. Really appreciate it. Really, really appreciate it. Yeah, folks, if you want to become a member here on the channel, just hit that join button. There's 2 levels. Level number 2, you get access to shows like Horror Movie Nights, where we just watch a horror movie together, classic horror movie. One Good Scare, which is the Halloween only show, which we just did a couple of days ago. Of course, member only Q&A as well. But there's level number 1 as well, where you just get access to the member Q&A and any sort of member posts I'll post, member only posts or polls or photos and things like that. As we start to ramp up the It's Me Billy Chapter 2 marketing campaign here soon, I'm going to have some posts for everybody, of course, but I will have some juicy members only posts and photos as well. So just saying. Let me see here. Jamie Hart says, to get back to the Crystal Lake TV show, I really think that if they made it using Twin Peaks as an inspiration, it would be a hit. Ooh, Not bad, Jamie. Not bad at all. Talk about the town, the woods, and the peeps who live in there. Not bad. And who knows? Maybe they will. Maybe they will. I don't know. But yeah, that's not bad. That's not bad. I could see that being like a really good template. You know what I mean? And maybe they will. There's probably a few shows that they're using inspiration from. You know, they're in the writer's room and, you know, they're figuring all that out. So yeah, not bad. Not bad. All right, folks, listen, that is going to do it for me here on this episode of Mcrae Live. I believe I got all the super chats and member chats. I believe I did. Yes, I did. I want to thank, of course, my moderators. Thank you for doing what you guys do. I really, really appreciate it. Thank you to the member chats that came in, the super chats that came in, and thank you to everybody who watched this episode of Mcrae Live. Hey, if you're watching after the fact, jump into the comment section below and let me know your thoughts on the hiring of Brad Kane as the new showrunner, executive producer, and writer of A24 and Peacock's Crystal Lake TV series, the prequel series to Friday the 13th. Let me know your thoughts, and let me know your thoughts on anything I had to say here today. I would greatly appreciate it. Have a great rest of your Wednesday, folks. Stay safe out there, and I will be back soon with another show. In the meantime and in between time, I will talk to you soon. Cheers.